Wow, the NFL is a wild league, and week one is always known to be unpredictable, but this was one of the weirdest week ones we've seen in many years. Shocking upsets. Some teams look ready. Some teams look lost. Some look ready to dominate. It's football week one madness on this episode of Next Man Up on Down the Rabbit Hole Media, and it all starts now. All right, with me are Johnny P. and Chris Lizio. Obviously, we're going to be introducing a new week one segment, and it's called Ask the Fan. We all know we have love and support of our favorite teams every week. We have hopes and expectations, and more often than not, what happens on the field is not what we see coming, and we have to temper expectations. So what better way to analyze these fluctuations with emotions with this new segment? Obviously, last night, everybody saw it. 4 plays into the first offensive series for Aaron Rodgers. He was carted off the field, and he just had a look on his face like, it was bad. Chris, we're going to start with you for the new segment. Obviously, the Jets, we're going to get your whole overall take on the game, but let's start with a few rapid-fire questions. Question one, and also...
But before we get started, I just want to have a quick moment of silence for the Aaron Rodgers era in New York possibly being over in a matter of 15 seconds. Just throwing that out there.
All right. No, I was staying silent because I thought you wanted me to be silent. I was trying to be respectful to not only the Jets, but probably Aaron Rodgers' career. Let's be honest.
It's extremely weird for me being a Bears fan, watching that go down last night. I really didn't know what to feel, mixed emotions, because obviously I have so much hatred towards that man, but what a moment. He started with the American flag coming out. And you just hate to see that, especially after 4 plays, that build up, that hype. I as a Chicago fan, I've never heard MetLife that loud before on a national broadcast. I mean, that place was rocking and the wind just got completely sucked out. So
yeah, I got chills seeing that. I just want to kind of talk about that off the top. I got chills seeing him run out with the flag. It was very reminiscent of that 2001 year, like, when that happened, and you have the first game when that happens, and then every time they play on 9/11 there is a player that runs out with it, whether it was Nick Mangold when he was playing, or it was now Aaron Rodgers. There's always that one player that people will latch onto and associate with that moment, and that just that was we're here, it's happening, and then for it to go away that quickly is just, it's a lot. It's I said it when they signed Rodgers. I said, I'm not jumping for joy yet. Let me see him take some snaps and actually play a game. And I bought into the hype eventually and was all about it. And now I'm just sitting here in despair. But anyway, we can go on to asking the questions, but I just kind of wanted to get that out there to start it.
Was this a Hard Knocks? Was this Hard Knocks' fault?
Ooh. They might.
I'm throwing a life raft out there for you. I mean, can we blame this on Hard Knocks?
No, we just blame it on the Jets being a cursed franchise. That's really all it comes down to.
We can certainly blame the hype on Hard Knocks. Let me put it that way, because I can't recall any more hype for not only a season, but a player, just because of everything Jets fans needed and the Jets team needed and everything Rodgers has accomplished in his career and his reputation. It seemed like a match made in heaven. I wanted to see how he actually did, even though I was critical of the signing to begin with. And now I'm arguably just going to defend myself throughout the rest of the season. But without further ado, Chris, can the Jets still improve from last season without Rodgers? Let's start there.
Well, I look at it this way. They can still improve on what they did last season without Rodgers, because they proved in game one they were able to battle back after that happened. The defense is an elite defense. I don't think anyone can deny that. They had 4 takeaways from Josh Allen, who's known as one of the best quarterbacks in the league. You know, he's kind of a weird player where like he's either playing at an elite level or he plays like an absolute knucklehead. There's really no in between. You know, he's very reckless with it, but you know, Jordan Whitehead had 3 interceptions on him, and that kind of gets lost in the sauce with the other stories. And he actually hit an incentive on his contract to get 3 interceptions in the season in week 1. So he just became a very rich man just from one game of, you know, having 3 interceptions. And, you know, they did what they had to do. Sauce looked a little bit spotty. But you know, it's also that week 1 sort of jitters for everyone. You know, everyone gets them. Quinnen Williams did what he had to do. Mosley was in there. Like all the players that you wanted to be involved got involved. And the defense itself is better than last year. It was I think like a top 4 scoring defense last year. It's going to be right there again. The offense had improvements as well. You know, you go out and you get players like Alan Lazard. You go out there and you sign Dalvin Cook. You have the 1-2 punch in the backfield. Breece Hall coming back from his ACL injury looks as good as ever. Maybe I'd say he's probably at about 80 to 85% yesterday, considering he ran out of gas on that 83-yard run. It could have, you know, if he was 100%, I think he's gone and has a touchdown on that one. But, you know, Garrett Wilson has proven why he was the offensive rookie of the year last year with his nomination for catch of the year in week 1. I thought that was an absolutely wild catch for that touchdown. And, you know, so yes, the answer is yes, they can still improve on last year with Wilson at the helm, because they didn't take a step back in any positions, in my opinion, from last year. They only improved. And Zach Wilson being around Aaron Rodgers has helped him improve. His poise on the field, off the field has been night and day from last year to this year. He seemed very professional when they were interviewing him. He made some better decisions aside from the interception that he had last night. I think that his demeanor on the field was much calmer and less frantic than it was last year. So that could be part of the Rodgers effect rubbing off on him. So I think that they have improved overall as it is.
I mean, they won the game. If I'm a Jets fan, I'm just pointing out over and over that they won the game and they're 1-0 after week 1, and that's it.
Yes,
that's it right now. Obviously, they had all this hype, but
at the same time, Zach Wilson did beat the Bills last year, so you know apparently he can play against the Bills.
Dude, I think I want to take a second and I want to give Zach Wilson a little love, not just because he's been crapped on in this entire, not only in New York but around the entire league throughout his career so far. But it's mainly because the Jets were not ready for him when they drafted him, if you ask me. Because
I said
Exhibit
that,
A, they have made all the changes.
Yep.
You've already seen the changes. So we know that they've already changed their mind on pretty much everything they had with Wilson from the start. So now you have Wilson answering the bell with an offensive coordinator in Nathaniel Hackett, who, let's face it, probably there for Aaron Rodgers, not really there for Zach Wilson. Wilson was in the quietest stadium possible. It was a little rough around the edges at first, but he hung tough. And that touchdown he threw to Wilson, guess who taught him to throw the first down fade into the corner? Aaron Rodgers. So there is hope. I agree. There could be some positivity going forward. But do you foresee, obviously Wilson, it's a different ball game. Do you foresee the Jets signing a quarterback that can maybe compete for his spot? Do you overall have faith in him? What do you think the Jets are going to be doing in that regard?
So when it comes to that, it's already been like basically revealed that they have contacted some veteran quarterbacks, whether it be a Nick Foles or a Colt McCoy or someone that's a little bit more reliable than just having Tim Boyle as your only other quarterback on the roster.
But it's definitely a backup and not somebody who they think can be better.
Yes, I think that if they wanted to sign a veteran over Wilson to begin with, they would have done that, and Wilson would have been number 3 on the depth chart to begin with. They haven't given up faith in him. He showed that he was able to answer the call yesterday and stay poised when he hadn't had any reps with the ones since, before Rodgers got there, really. So you look at it that way, where if you give him a couple weeks with the first team offense, getting, down his reads a little bit more, maybe he can turn into the player that they drafted at number 2 overall. But I think they do bring in someone as a backup just because, Tim Boyle, good guy, but I don't foresee him really being the answer if anything happens. As I said, I think that they look towards a Foles, potentially Flacco, since he was there last year. He has some relationships with guys in the building. Maybe Trevor Siemian, once again, someone that had been there a couple of years ago. But I think if you look at it, you're probably looking at a McCoy or a Foles as the guy that winds up coming in. I heard Matt Ryan's high on the list, which would be baffling. That would be, he just got a job as a commentator this year. He got, a 28-3 joke thrown at him in the broadcast.
That was brutal. That was
brutal.
I didn't hear this. That's me.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll send you the clip after the show.
Please
Anthony.
do.
You gotta watch it. The absolute disgust and disgrace on Matt Ryan's face. You gotta see it. Oh.
You know what? Maybe that was enough to get him saying, you know what? Maybe I will go out and play one more year so I don't have to deal with 17 more weeks of this. But, who knows who they go out and get. I'm going to put it to rest. They're not getting Tom Brady to come out of retirement. So anyone who says that, just stop talking.
Maybe they'll sign Matt Ryan before week 2 and they can go out against the Cowboys and you can beat Dan Quinn and say, hey, Dan Quinn, screw you. We should have won that game when we were down 28-3.
Yeah, they signed Matt Ryan. He comes in and the final score is 28-3 Jets.
Ooh,
the NFL script writers, they got a mind of their own. The NFL script writers. I mean, Rodgers goes down after 4 plays. Who are the Jets going to sign now? Brady coming back out of retirement? Oh, what a story that would be, huh?
I just want to say that when it happened, I laughed. And that's not because I'm laughing at an injury, not because I want anybody to get hurt, not because not because I didn't want to see Rodgers play, but because I said, you can't make this up. Like, obviously, we all anticipated an injury. We all anticipated Aaron Rodgers eventually Chris said it on the last show. He's like, eventually, Zach Wilson is going to have to come in and win some games. We didn't expect it on the 4th play. But we had talked a little bit about how I semi-laughed myself because it was the most Jets way to start a season that has expectations. You're on national TV. You have this new toy that you want to show off, and now your new toy is already broken. I think a lot of this is on Woody Johnson. I mean, basically, we talked about it till the cows came home throughout the entire offseason. We talked about how a lot of the moves the Jets were making were surrounding Aaron Rodgers and therefore putting a very small window on the team to succeed. You have a young coach in Robert Saleh. Yeah, you have a young quarterback in Zach Wilson. You have a lot of young players on defense. But because you've invested in Aaron Rodgers and because you brought in Nathaniel Hackett and because he's, 40 years old, the window to win was either this year or next year if we're talking Super Bowl. Now it's completely flipped. And you're still thinking, okay, how do we get better from last year? But then again, Hackett and Wilson, is that really the pairing you wanted? Did you even really want Aaron Rodgers in the first place? So I ask you, how do you think Saleh and Douglas feel right now after they, on record, wanted Derek Carr? We're looking, because he could have been a 4-year signing, wouldn't have broke the bank. Somebody we know can throw for 4,000 yards, maybe 25, 28 touchdowns. And you obviously are building around your defense. I hate to say I told you so, but looking back on it, that was the move. And that's the move your team wanted. So how do you feel right now, Chris? I'm not trying to be mean.
No, I mean, you and I have discussed it ad nauseum that Woody Johnson meddles too much. And you see him in his box last night wearing the stupid ass chain that he got during Hard Knocks. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. This goon is up there in that chain. Why can't he just act like a normal human? I know he's got millions and billions of dollars, but just be normal. Like, why can't normal people have money? Why do they all got to be freaking weirdos? But like, if I'm Saleh and Douglas, Douglas drafted Wilson. So in his mind, he's like, you know what? My guy's got to perform because then it looks even better on me. But, hindsight 2020, they're probably saying, well, Derek Carr managed to go out there and win. It may have been a crappy game, but he still won. He could have done that for us and not gotten hurt in the first drive behind a better, with better weapons around him and a strong defense on the other side of the ball. So, if I'm them, you saw the look in Robert Saleh's face after Rodgers went down. He looked like a defeated man for a second. He's like, you have to be kidding me, all this. And he's like, he was so just deadpan, like no emotion. He was like, you have to be kidding me. That was it. Are you kidding me face if I've ever seen one. But, if I'm them, you have to, basically it's like, all right, well, your job just got more difficult. Show that you're the guy for the job. And I think they both know that. They both have that mentality. They've been doing what they can to put the right team out there. And, unlike some other teams in New York who we can say haven't been putting the right team out there, mainly in a different sport that involves a bat and a ball. But, it's when you look at that, Woody did meddle. He got what he wanted. And as I said, as a Jets fan,
and now
it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time before it blows up in your face. And that matter of time was much sooner than a lot of us thought it would be.
It just upsets me that people that have less power in the situation, like Saleh, for example, are now, his career could take a serious hit if the season doesn't go the way that it's supposed to. But I think we should give him a little bit of credit. His team didn't roll over and die. A lot of teams in that life, to go from, like a Bruce Springsteen rock concert to dead in the water all before 3 minutes into the ball game, 4 minutes into the ball game. I think that says a lot about Saleh's personality and the belief the Jets have. I thought that was a very wholesome interview with the punt returner at the end. They said we had to win for Aaron. I thought it was a little bit uplifting. Maybe the Jets can build from that. But last question, Chris, before we give you a little bit of FaceTime, how next week, obviously the Jets are playing the Dallas Cowboys. We're going to talk a little bit ad nauseum how the Giants and Cowboys game went week one, but obviously Cowboys won 40-0 week one. They looked dominant, maybe even a better defense than the Jets. It's in the discussion. How do you think the game will play out next week?
So I think that the Dallas defense definitely benefited from the weather this week. Obviously it was a monsoon and the ball gets slippery. You can't really throw that well in that sort of weather. You can't hold on to the ball as well in that weather. Dallas is indoors. The Jets are going indoors. They're going to play at Dallas. It's a home opener in Dallas, so obviously it's going to be loud. Big. It's going to be
everything's
an
bigger.
Environment, which it's going to be an environment that rivals probably last night in the Meadowlands, but you're on the other end of the cheers and boos. So you have to cut through the noise and do your job. As if the defense can do what they did last night, I think that Dallas's offensive shortcomings, maybe on Dak's side of things, will
give me a score. Damn it! Tell me. Give me a score.
I think it'll be a tight one. I don't think that it'll be very high scoring. I think it'll wind up being like a 16-14 sort of low scoring affair.
Who wins?
I'm going to say that the Jets are going to win because the Jets are going to win because I'm just going to be a homer in that fact. But
I don't need you to explain yourself or be like, "Oh, I'm a homer." I just want real quick, who's winning this ball game?
It'll be
John, you got to take.
It'll be a defensive struggle.
Chris, good teams find a way to win close games, and Anthony alluded to it. The life clearly got sucked out of MetLife last night when Rodgers went down. I don't think anyone expected the Jets to come back in that game, and the fact that they did that against Josh Allen and that Bills team against a really tough division opponent and really showed Josh Allen essentially that their defense was here and was there to play. I thought that showed a lot. I think Zach Wilson or the tutelage of Rodgers this last summer. Who knows? Who really knows how the Jets are going to do this season?
What about next week?
I would not write them off. I would not write them off just yet. And this upcoming week, I think it's going to be a little tough knowing that they're going to Dallas. I've been in that stadium. I went last season to watch the Bears and Cowboys. That is a tough environment. I'm sure all the Dallas fans will be rocking loud. I do think it's going to be a tight game. I actually have Dallas probably like in a 2017 contest, but again, that defense last night, they really impressed me. Saleh's got those guys fired up. Doesn't matter who's playing quarterback back there for the Jets. I think they're going to be competitive in almost every game this season.
And that defense did that with Carl Lawson being inactive. So, that's one of your top edge guys, and he was out.
I love it. Now, FaceTime Chris, and let's talk a little Bears football after that. But, Chris, final thoughts on the Jets and all the state of affairs right now?
Final thoughts. I kind of got a lot of them out there. It was, you got your shiny new toy, it's broken, and now you have to, you broke it the first time you played with it, and you got to look forward and say,
it's sort of like when Woody kicked Buzz Lightyear out the window, but if that had happened in the first 30 seconds of the movie, that's basically
exactly. And silver linings, as I said, if Rodgers gets hurt this season, it winds up only being a second-round pick that goes to Green Bay next year, and Jets hold on to their first-round pick. Jets still have a first-round pick next year. So there's my silver lining there. You get to see what you have in Wilson, truly have in Wilson now that he's had the time under Rodgers in the preseason.
I'm excited.
It's his time, year 3. It's that year 3 jump. A lot of players make that year 3 jump. Will he be one of them? I sure to God hope so. But the fashion that they won that game last night was very reminiscent of the 2009-2010 teams that prided themselves on the run game and defense and special teams. You have huge runs coming from Breece Hall. Dalvin Cook was a good change of pace back. They were good giving the 1-2 punch, and then Michael Carter got involved as well. So this team is built to run the ball, and they're going to continue to run the ball until you stop them. The defense
supported Mark Sanchez.
Yes, and those teams supported Mark Sanchez.
Zach Wilson. That's what I want.
This team is supporting Zach Wilson. I think that his answers in the press conferences and interviews last night were very professional, very team friendly, and he learned his lesson from last year. I think that this team, as the way that they won, they gutted it out. They stopped Josh Allen in overtime, and then Xavier Gibson, who was talked about a lot during Hard Knocks. I kept talking about him in all of my recaps. He was my thumbnail, ironically, for the podcast about the finale, because he was an undrafted receiver that made the team because he is going to be their return man. And in his first true opportunity to make a name for himself, he did it. And on the biggest stage, in the biggest moment, that it might be the biggest moment of his career, this year could be the biggest moment of his career, period, in that sort of heightened state of emotions with everything surrounding it. So the fact that they were able to do that, just, there is hope. Hope is not all lost because they were able to do that. So yes, things seem dark, and all we know is misery, and JETS typically stands for just end the suffering. Suffering hasn't completely ended, but it looks like we might have a light at the end of the tunnel because this team was able to battle back. So that is my 2 cents on that game. I really, you got to take the wins where you can get them. It's a 1 in the left side of the win-loss.
It's a brutal loss for
that's
Buffalo.
all that matters.
It's a brutal loss
for Buffalo.
So it's interesting to see how that started the division.
It's a division rival. Yeah. And when there's a lot of division rivalries that kick off the start of the season this year.
Hate it.
All 3 of us had to deal with them.
Hate it.
And speaking of, John, with the Bears, they, daddy moved. He's in New York. Stepdaddy comes in and still owns you. So what is it about the Packers that just has the Bears number no matter who's playing quarterback?
Chris, you mentioned curses for the Jets. It's almost a curse at this point for the Bears when you look at the Bears-Packers rivalry. That makes it 9 in a row that this team has failed to even compete, even come close to the same level as their division opponents. The Bears fell to the Packers 38-20 this Sunday. And yes, I know the score looked a little bit closer than it really was. It was 37-14 at one point. It's sickening. It's downright embarrassing. The fans here in Chicago, we deserve better. We've been through enough. We've been promised that this team is ready to turn the corner, and yet the same results keep happening. How many more times is it going to take for the Bears to turn that corner? Are the Packers just going to dominate for another 15 seasons? I was in a dark, depressed, cold state yesterday. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to work. I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to curl up into a ball. That's how depressed this Bears team makes me almost every Sunday. It is so hard rooting for this team sometimes. I sometimes question my sanity, why I do it. They have put us through the ringer. You had all offseason to prepare for this game. This Bears-Packers game was the most hyped game, the anticipation for months. And to come out like that in front of your fans was an absolute disgrace. This organization should feel ashamed of themselves. And I hate this bullshit narrative that the NFL pitches that, oh, the Bears-Packers, this is the longest historic rivalry in the NFL. Guys, this hasn't been a rivalry since the early 2000s. And still, the Packers still had the Bears number in the early 2000s. it was just more competitive at that point. It's literally comical. Green Bay continues to have better coaching. They know how to develop their players, and they have more trust in their players, in their schemes than the Bears do. And until that changes, I don't know when the Bears are going to beat them. I really don't.
I mean, the Bears, I thought, were one of the most improved teams in the offseason, at least on paper. They addressed all the areas of need. They traded out of the first overall pick. They got someone like DJ Moore, who did, he did help, I'd say, Fields to an extent. But, it's still, I feel like there was something missing. I watched that game. We did not have the best lineup of games in New York at 1:00 or 4:00 on Sunday, or even 8:00, where the whole country didn't have a good lineup of games. But, it's like, it seems like it's almost psychological, like on the field. Like, do you get that vibe from them? And, what takeaways do you really have that are positive on your side?
I honestly don't know if it's psychological at this point, because the last time the Bears beat the Packers, that you have to go all the way back to 2018, the last time the Bears won the NFC North. There's only 2 players left from that team. That's guard Cody Whitehair and safety Eddie Jackson. So all these players, all the current players on this roster, really have no idea truly what this rivalry means. I don't know if you can call it psychological. I think it's more of a curse. That literally what it feels like to me. There were a few positives I did take from the game. I thought Roschon Johnson, who I talked on the Bear Necessities podcast last week, our 4th round rookie running back, I thought he clearly wanted to play. He scored his first NFL touchdown in garbage time the last, 4 or 6 minutes of the game. The last 10 minutes of the Bears-Packers game was meaningless. It wasn't even a contest. You could have flipped the station to Red Zone or another game on CBS. I mean, the game was over, 10 minutes still left to play. That's how embarrassing it was. I thought the Bears defense overall in the first half played decent enough. It was 10-6 heading into halftime. Of course, they let up 28 unanswered in the second half, which, you can't really account for. And then after rewatching the tape, I thought both offensive tackles, both young offensive tackles, Braxton Jones and rookie Darnell Wright, I thought they performed pretty good despite a couple penalties on Braxton Jones. The interior of the Bears offensive line, that's where a lot of the damage was done. They really had a rough day. That unit, really, the offensive line as a whole, really hasn't been able to practice much together in the preseason. There's been injuries. Starting guard Tevin Jenkins is going to continue to be out until at least week 4. So clearly that unit doesn't have chemistry. And this has been a topic for years. When will the Bears ever have a good, solid offensive line? We can talk all we want about Justin Fields and his progress, but if you can't protect up front, how good is your quarterback ultimately going to play? So there were a couple of things, but not a lot of positives I took from Sunday's game.
Yeah, I mean, I know I'd say the running game was definitely what I saw that did flourish. I mean, they're a running team. They have been for the last few years. Montgomery's out, and Johnson did a good job, filling in that, change of pace with what's his name, Cohen. I think he did a good job there. And then looking at the defensive side of the ball, defense did play well in the first half, but Aaron Jones, man, there's something about Aaron's on Green Bay that just put up numbers against Chicago. He had a great day for me in fantasy, at least, but it comes at your expense. I'm sorry to hear that.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Don't worry. He's in a lot of leagues. I technically have him in our league, so whatever.
Chris, honestly, I expected it. I went on the Bear Necessities podcast last week, and I talked about how the Bears really struggle to contain Aaron Jones. He has the Bears number. There really is something about Aaron's on the team up north. He always performs well against the Bears. And I think Chicago was lucky he pulled up with a hamstring strain after his 35-yard screen pass that went for a touchdown down the right sideline. I mean, he really didn't even finish the game for Green Bay. He really didn't need to. It wasn't a contest at that point. I don't have an answer for you. And I don't think the Bears do either on how they can contain Aaron Jones. They haven't been able to contain him for 7 years. And I don't see how that all of a sudden that's going to change with this defense, with how leaky of holes we see in this rushing defense. I mean, that rushing defense for the most part looked like Swiss cheese on Sunday. So it's really difficult to see how this team is going to improve going up against any lethal rushing attack. Moving forward, I thought AJ Dillon did pretty solid coming in for Aaron Jones as well. So,
and looking at the team, Fields, do you twofold question? Do you think Fields is your guy, and how is your faith with him? Is it wavering? Or are you saying that's my guy? And Eberflus is the coach. You know, has he done anything in your mind to say he's the guy who's going to turn this franchise around, or is he on the hot seat already?
I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I know it's just week one, and I'm gonna try and do the Aaron Rodgers relax. I'm trying to relax, but I'm really
X.
yeah,
Relax.
I'm starting to get extremely concerned about both men. But let's start with the quarterback first, shall we? Bears fans have been through this before. Time in and time again, we ask ourselves every year, do we have our guy? The Bears franchise is the only franchise in the National Football League that has never had a passer throw for 4,000 yards in a season. That's sad. And although Justin Fields is a sensational athlete at the quarterback position, Bears fans have never seen a guy do the things that Justin's able to do. He is still struggling to throw the ball down the field. He had 37 pass attempts on Sunday, guys. Only 3 of them went farther than 10 yards. That's a huge, huge red flag. Do our coaches trust Justin to throw the ball deep? Does Justin trust himself to throw the ball down the field? Does the current offensive scheme, our offensive play calling, I mean, are we limiting his ability to do that? Why can't we just run him out on a rollout every play? That's clearly one of his strengths.
I'm going to say something right now. I'm going to say something right now. Justin Fields will be the first Chicago Bears quarterback to throw over 4,000 yards. I want you to believe that. And I want you to actually
I have a hard time believing that myself.
No, listen, he might be a raw athlete, and everything you're saying is completely true. You can teach this guy. If it's not Eberflus or whatever the hell his name is, it'll be somebody else. But I'm just telling you, it's a psychological issue with the Bears and Packers. If they didn't even attempt anything over 10 yards, that means they went in and gave their defense way too much respect, or there was too much intimidation given the streak. I think it probably falls more on the coaches than it does the quarterback, because I'd like to think that they want to throw the ball deep at some point. I'm going to honestly, Rodgers is right. Relax. It's the Packers have your number. I know the Bears are supposed to be better this year. You're not winning a Super Bowl this year. You're not bringing home the Lombardi Trophy, but you're going to be better than last year. You're going to continue to see growth. Honestly, the bar is so low for improvement after last year. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm saying you had a lot of young, exciting talent last year, and you still lost a lot. Now you got to win some games. Now you got to piece together 6, 7, 8, maybe 8-win season. I still think it's possible for the Bears, and I think that should be the expectation of the fans. Am I wrong?
You're not wrong, Anthony. You're definitely not wrong. But again, this goes back to the Bears have no more excuses this season when it comes to Fields. He has to get better. This is your 3rd year.
I believe he will.
Already.
Right.
I mean, Bears fans after Sunday's game are already going to Twitter, hoping that Caleb Williams from USC falls to them in the upcoming draft. I mean, that's how fed up fans feel.
Those people are
in Chicago.
There's New Yorkers like that too. Don't listen to those people.
I mean, we have plenty of meatball fans, just like New York does. But again, we all need to see more. Justin clearly did not have his best performance, but the Bears moved heaven on earth to go get DJ Moore, and he had 2 targets, guys. He had 2 back-to-back catches in the first half, and then the Bears play calling just completely went away from him.
He's going to have over 100 yards this week against the Buccaneers, and the Bears are going to beat the Buccaneers 35-31. That you heard it here first. What do you guys? What do you think? Let's start obviously with you, Johnny P. How do you think about the Bears matchup going into the Bucs next week?
I'm not going to lie. I'm not as optimistic as you, Anthony. I think the Buccaneers are a really scrappy team. They really came ready to play. They looked like the hungrier team after being multiple point underdogs to Minnesota. I don't know how the Bears win unless they get consistent pressure on Baker Mayfield. They have to get the ball to their playmakers. They have to get the ball to DJ Moore, Darnell Mooney, Cole Kmet. They have to be able to stop the run and play better zone coverage. Too many times this Bears defense has had so many holes open on defense. And like I said, teams are going to carve us out like Swiss cheese if that doesn't improve. We've seen performances like this in the past. And being a fan of this team, again, it's so challenging trying to be optimistic after such a flat performance like we saw on Sunday. Can they turn it around? Because to me, they really have never had that ability to turn it around after such a devastating defeat. I hate to say this. I don't think they get this win in Tampa. I think they start this year. I think they start this year 0-2, and then they have a week 3 matchup heading into Kansas City. So not a great start if you're a Bears fan.
I got to just slightly disagree with you, and then I want to give you your FaceTime on the Bears and just wrap up everything going on with the Bears. Have you ever seen the Baker Mayfield meme where it's like play up to competition, become an underdog? He's going down right now. He just won last week. So you're good. You're going to play Baker Mayfield next week. He's going to look like crap. He's going to be lost and confused. They're going to be roughing him up. He's scrappy. He might keep them in the game. I just said 35-31, but I think it's just the law of averages. The Bears had a crap week one. The Bucs had a strong week one. It's still early in the season. There's still a lot of emotion on the line. It's not like the Bears are 0-4 and they're just trying to look for who's like we saw last year. Like they're just trying to make plays. I don't even care who wins the game. They can win this game. Believe it. Overcome all this darkness, John. I believe in you. Now, the final thoughts on the Bears. I want to give you your time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll make this quick because I know we got to get to Giants talk. So final thoughts on the Bears. My biggest concern is that the other team's quarterback, who made his second career overall start in Jordan Love, played better than our quarterback in his 26th NFL start. An unproven quarterback tossed 3 touchdowns against a revamped defense and put up 31 offensive points. That simply can't happen. That shouldn't happen. So who's accountable for that? I think Matt Eberflus is already on the hot seat. And if the Bears continue to not impress and not improve, he's going to be really on the hot seat before the bye week. Chase Claypool, where was the effort on Sunday? He had two targets, 2 drops. The guy is almost 6'5", well over 200 pounds, and he's not giving any effort to block for his players. You can pout and be upset that clearly this offense might not be working for you, but when you're on the field, you better give 110%. And we did not see that from Chase Claypool on Sunday. Really, really not happy with his effort. And then finally, going back to the defense, I thought the defense on all levels, the defensive line, our linebackers, and our secondary failed on all levels. I didn't think Green Bay did anything special, but we made Jordan Love look like an all-star, look like a world beater. That cannot continue moving forward. And speaking of defense, my Lord, what happened on Sunday night, Anthony? I feel like as a Bears fan, I needed to send you and the rest of the Giants fans like an edible arrangement.
Short answer is they got smoked and embarrassed and humiliated, and they looked kind of like a bunch of babies that didn't really want to be out there in the rain. And it's painful for me to say it because, you know, we kind of feel bamboozled. You have so much positivity in the offseason. You want to go into the season and feel good about it. The Cowboys, the last time the Giants have defeated Dak Prescott and the Cowboys was 2016. Yes, they beat the Cowboys another time, but that was when Andy Dalton was at quarterback and Dak Prescott was not healthy. Dak Prescott has owned us, and I hate to admit that. It's been a long enough time now where we have to respect him, sort of like the Rodgers, Packers, Bears thing we were just talking about. But there's whenever you get shut out at home in any week, in any weather condition, it's a top to bottom failure. So that's exactly what this is. And we'll break it down. We'll talk about how Giants fans should be feeling. But overall, I mean, what happened is they got smoked and beaten by a team that was more prepared than they were.
So really quick, do you think the weather had any impact of whether or not the Giants wanted to come out and play that night? Was Dallas just the better team? It looked really wet, sloppy, and messy out there. I mean, give me your thoughts on that. How much did the weather play a factor in Sunday night's game?
Well, this is football, right? So everybody always says, hey, it's raining for them too. And everybody makes these dumb euphemisms that we always just say over and over. I'm tired of the conversation. Anybody that watched this game obviously can see the rain was a tremendous problem. Yes, for both teams, but arguably more for the Giants, simply because the rain was so bad. And I'm not saying they lost because of rain. I'm saying the score is probably different than 40-0 if it's not raining. I believe that fully. But if maybe if the Cowboys started with the ball, it would have been different, because the rain literally affected the Giants on the first drive. And the first drive, the Giants offense, it was the one drive that looked good. They kind of came out thinking, this is really bad weather. They're a very tough defense. They kind of went back to the 2022 early season game plan that they had last year. We have a dual threat of runners with Jones and Saquon Barkley. Let's continue to utilize misdirections and let's get them on their heels. That's what they did on the opening drive. And they were pushing the Cowboys back, this big, tough, mean defensive front. We were pushing them around. I'm like, this is good. We can run the ball down their throats. This is very good. And then, of course, you get third down in the red zone. You want to try and, maybe throw the ball. And what do? I don't even know if it was going to be a throw. It could have been a zone read type thing. But Jones was in the shotgun and the ball was snapped right at his feet. So, yes, the rain is a big part of that. You have a rookie center in a very tough situation in his first ever start, can't even get a shotgun snap down. That kind of puts a weird feeling going out there for your field goal unit. And then I don't even know who it was. Some guy just didn't block his guy on the field goal block. And then I said, oh, don't worry, Graham Gano is going to catch him. And he doesn't catch him. And he goes all the way to the house for a touchdown. So you had that to start the game. And they didn't need to panic. But when they came right out right after that and they tried to throw that quick pass to Barkley, which I still think is more on Barkley than Jones, even though it's a Jones interception, it was not exactly the best decision. The game was over at that moment. It didn't have to be, but it forced the Giants to be in an early hole. So they said, all right, let's try throwing the ball. And they had a 3 straight drop back drive. And that was when the Cowboys realized, hey, we can kill them. They're not even going to try and throw the ball over 10 yards. The weather is a serious factor. The O-line is confused. Evan Neal cannot block Parsons. Glowinski had his worst game as a Giant since he's been here. People are thinking we should call Justin Pugh. After that, I do realize their defensive line embarrassed our offensive line, but the reality is they knew we were one-dimensional. They knew we were either running the ball or throwing it basically laterally. There's a West Coast offense, and then there's a no forward offense, and that's what we were running. So it was brutal. It was horrible to watch. I don't think it had to end like that. I think they could have gone back to the ground and pound that they were doing very easily in the first half. I like to see drives where you run on first, second, and third down. People don't do it anymore, but you can do it. Daboll got humiliated, embarrassed, worst game since he's become head coach. And the team that has given him the most, you could argue the Cowboys have given him more trouble than the Eagles. It's literally those two teams. And that's the most frustrating thing is we finally have our coach of the year. Everybody's loving this. And to have our two most hated rivalries just be at our throats and literally laughing at us. Like that's the situation. They're not just beating us. They are laughing at us. Diggs is Cowboy fans everywhere, and not necessarily Dallas Cowboy fans, transplant Cowboys fans. Hey, I'm a Cowboy fan from New Jersey. Hey, I'm a Cowboy fan from East Moriches. It doesn't matter. You're more annoying because you're not a true Cowboy fan. I have no problem if you're from Dallas. I have no problem if you're from Texas. I have no problem if you're from the mid-central southern region of the country. But if you just decided one day because of a dynasty that was probably older than your existence that you wanted to wear the Dallas Cowboys colors and you want to come into our stadium and you want to get drunk and you want to pick fights and you want to wear jorts and you want to drive Dodge Rams, those people can kiss my ass, period. But it was a nightmare game for the Giants.
I hear you. Mm-hmm. I mean, trust me, I know all about inbred Green Bay Packer fans that have never been to Green Bay. They've never been to Lambeau to see a game. So trust me, I hear and understand your pain and frustration on.
They were chanting in our house, John. They were chanting in our house. I actually think from now on, all teams, all stadiums, separate fans. I know this sounds like, very inappropriate, like segregation, but they sometimes do this in the Premier League soccer where they don't have fans sitting together because there's too much violence, bad things happening. I don't want to sit anywhere near an obnoxious Cowboy fan if I'm at that game. Can you imagine being at that game? A lot of Giant fans were psyched. Home opener, soaking wet, 40-0. They want to go home and cry. Like, just give them some space. Like, don't even talk to them. Like, just separate. That's my opinion. I would never say anything to a division opponent if we just beat them 40-0 unless they spoke to me first. And I wouldn't be obnoxious in their house either.
So, forget the fans for a second, Anthony. Are the Cowboys legitimately 40 points better than your New York Giants? I mean, was this a one-time fluke because of the weather, because New York's offense came out flat? And, you talked about, Brian Daboll and Daniel Jones from last year and how prolific that offense was and the steps that they were able to take last season. Why weren't they able to get any points on the board? Obviously, we know Dallas is a really good defense, but are they really 40 points better than that showing on Sunday night? Was that just a fluke, or should you be really concerned about Daniel Jones and your coach moving forward this year?
Well, I mean, I think you have to say the Cowboys are better, and you could even say they're a lot better, but I wouldn't go as far as to say they're 40 points better. I do think the weather was a huge impact on it. I kind of tried to outline this before. I'm not saying weather is an excuse for why they lost. I'm not that guy. I don't want to be that guy. I know it was raining for Dak Prescott too, but Dak Prescott took the field, I think, with a 16-0 lead in that weather. That's a huge advantage. Like you know what I'm saying? So just the whole thing got messed up on the opening drive with the low snap from Schmidt. I call him John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt, but that's not his real name. It just was all around disappointing. What really concerned me is that there was no fire in the gut, no response, no halftime adjustments. If they lose 40-14, it's a different tone. If they lose 40-10, it's a different tone. You get shut out at home, people are chomping at the bit for the entire week, and it ruins the entire week for everybody. And the Cowboys are substantially better than the Giants, and they have been for a long time, and they've definitely done better head-to-head. Doesn't mean throughout the season there might be some teams that the Giants beat that the Cowboys lose to, but it's just how it's been. And right now, obviously, everyone in the NFC East won on Sunday, and the Giants lost, so they're in an early hole. And I think this is easily the worst game of Daboll's career. Kafka and Daboll, I think they had a very, very strong game plan going into it. They probably got way too concerned about the weather and became, very focused on running and conservative. And then I think literally with 5 minutes to go in the first quarter or whatever it was, they didn't know what to do at that point because the weather was really bad. They literally could not throw. You talk about Justin Fields not throwing the ball 10 yards downfield. They couldn't. The ball. I'm sorry. Like if you're trying to air the ball out and there's all this weight of water coming down on the ball, you can't do it. So obviously that is a huge advantage for the Cowboys defense, who they want to play tight. They want to play 7-8 guys in the box. They want to confuse Evan Neal, who looked like garbage. And they need to. The Giants' offensive line, I think, can do better. So I don't think that there's any excuse. But go ahead.
You talked about them getting a little conservative. I feel like they still didn't run the ball like they should have.
No, I mean, where was the opening drive after the rest of the game? Why did they go back to that?
They went into it with a good game plan, as you said, but then they threw it out the window. If their game plan was what their opening drive was, they should have stuck with that because that did work. They got down the field. After that, it was crap. When you let up, a defensive touchdown, a special teams touchdown. Obviously that changes things, but it's go with your principles, go with what you do, do what you do better than them. Do what you do to get to that next level and do what you do best. And they didn't.
And anytime they got any sort of rhythm going, they started to get they had one drive where they started to get the ball to Waller. Jones rolls right, should have just threw it away. It's an inexcusable decision. This game is not entirely on Daniel Jones. And I'm tired of having the same freaking. I mean, we did it with Eli. Giants fans have the same debate every year. Our offensive line sucks. Our quarterback sucks. No, it's the line. No, it's the quarterback. No, it's the line. No, it's the quarterback. And I'm so sick of it. It's just not fun. It's not fun football talk. The offensive line is the same unit, tackle to tackle, with the exception of our new rookie center, who's supposed to be better than Feliciano. It shouldn't really be an excuse. Jones probably had 5 or 6 plays that he completely screwed up. And guess what? If he makes 4 of them or he makes 5 of them, it could be 40-21. It could literally have been that much of a difference. The interception he threw when he should have threw it away with Waller, no excuse for it. You had completely rolled out of the pocket. Everybody thought you were throwing it away. Why'd you throw it back inside? Everybody knows a mistake. But then he finally gets a good hot read to Isaiah Hodgins, who puts the ball on the ground. So it was an all-around team loss, top to bottom. It was just one of those days where it happens. Anytime you get something going, fumble, penalty. I mean, it was literally hey, something. Oh, no, never mind. Take it back. And it was just brutal. And I just want it to be over. And I want to move on to the Arizona Cardinals.
And before we get into the Cardinals, I just have one really quick question. Did you have an issue with Daniel Jones still being trotted out in the pouring rain, down how many points they were in the fourth quarter? I thought that was kind of tasteless on the Giants coaching staff. I understand it was a frustrating game plan, but that's your starting quarterback and you're trotting him out in a meaningless game at that point. He could risk injury. I didn't really see why that was necessary.
It was almost like they were trying to punish him.
Even the broadcasters said to let him sit on the bench. They're like, why is Tyrod Taylor not out there?
Eventually Tyrod came in, and that probably should have happened earlier, obviously. I mean, listen, I almost feel like they were trying to punish Daniel Jones because they took out Darren Waller, they took out Saquon Barkley, they took out Andrew Thomas. I think Neal was still in there. Basically, everybody who struggled was still out there, and they replaced in a lot of subs. And it looked even worse. Obviously, the protection is going to be worse when you take out Andrew Thomas and you put in Josh Zito. You know, he's supposed to be sort of our extra man. I don't have an answer. I mean, Brian Daboll didn't have a good answer when they asked him about this. He said, trying to get something positive. If it really is that simple, like he wanted Jones to feel good about something because he felt legitimately bad for him, it's a catastrophic mistake because these hits, the Cowboys were trying to hurt him. They were absolutely trying to do whatever they could to get him out of this game. They were trying to rough him up. They were laughing at the situation. They were like, wow, we can put 7-8 guys in the box, blitz every single time, and they can't even know, they don't even have a response to that. They can't throw a screen. They can't run the ball. They can't throw the ball downfield. So let's just keep doing it. Like I said, this is the worst performance of the Brian Daboll era. And it's funny because last year at home against the Dallas Cowboys, that was Daniel Jones' worst game of the season last year. So I think there's something about these Cowboy transplants chanting in our building, all this white in our stadium. And last year we'll have a white out. This year we'll have a blue out. How about no more color outage? Just go there and wear the Giants stuff and try and have more Giant fans than Cowboy fans. If you're a Giants season ticket holder and you're selling your tickets, or you're not at least making sure a Giants fan is going to the game, you, sir, are part of the problem. So I got no excuse for Daboll. He absolutely needs to eat his words, and I hope they can rectify things against Arizona on the road next week.
Speaking of Arizona, Anthony, you couldn't have asked for a better opponent for your team to rebound against. I think the tank is in. If you're Arizona, yes, they competed extremely well this last week against the Washington Commanders, the team, the football team, whatever you want to call them. What are your thoughts going into Arizona this upcoming week? Afternoon game in Arizona. Josh Dobbs is the Cardinals quarterback. Do you think the Giants get the ship right this upcoming Sunday?
I would like to see our defense have a dominant performance because the defense, they felt like they weren't even really on the field in the first game based on how everything had played out. Obviously, they could have played better and, in some certain aspects, but this is a matchup where it'd be nice to see the defense improve because in theory, on paper, Wink returning, other players arriving, the addition of Simmons, our new rookie corners, and that was probably the lone bright spot was that Banks looked solid. Hawkins struggled with some annoying penalties, but that always happens against Dallas. That's another thing. There's always some peculiar penalties pretty much every single time. I'm not saying it's Jerry world, but if you know how Jerry is, I wouldn't be surprised if he's doing whatever he can to get his fingerprints involved with the officiating. I'm not saying he's cheating. I'm saying if he could, he probably would. Let's leave it at that. So when you see Trey Hawkins literally touch a guy and they finally have a good stop and they get a pass interference call, it's extremely frustrating. But I would like to see continued development from the rookie corners, and I'd like to see the defense control the game, take some pressure off the offense because I still believe in Jones and Barkley. I still think Paris Campbell's a good addition. I still think Darren Waller is a good addition. And I don't think our offensive line is garbage. But I think it's a possibility that they're going to be feeling the heat. They're going to be feeling the New York media breathing down their necks. And the offense could still be a little rusty to start the game. So I would love for our defense to just come out and do what they're supposed to do against, like you said, an inferior Cardinal opponent. Don't fall for the trap. You got the 49ers next on the schedule. This is now a must-win game. You cannot fall 0-2 against NFC opponents to start the season with the 49ers as your next game. You just can't. So I believe the Giants can win. I think they'll bounce back. I think it'll look a little ugly in the beginning. I think Daboll will scream and go crazy like we've seen before on the sidelines. And then I think the Giants will take control and maybe they can win like 28-10 or 31-10. Just, what they should do against the Arizona Cardinals. And if they don't, I'm eating my words. I'm not making any more predictions. I don't know what this team is if something like that doesn't happen. If it's tight, ugly, or they lose, I don't know what to expect.
I was thinking 24-10. So you and me are kind of on the same page there.
I'm with you. I mean, it's got to be a good game for the defense. It's got to be. They need. You never know what can happen in a game. Sometimes it's a game of field position. Sometimes there's turnovers on offense, so you can never really judge everything until the game actually happens. But if we can control field position, if we can snap the ball, execute some field goals without any blocks, I'd like to think we can control this win, and the team's going to need it. So thankfully, yes, Arizona week 2 and not San Fran week 2. Can you imagine they had to play San Fran week 2? They'd be in a deep hole.
I think the climate's going to be a little bit better on Sunday too. So you got that to look.
You mean there's no hurricane in the Arizona desert? I mean, I'm half expecting it, but I'm
and
good memories there too in Phoenix for Giants fans.
San Fran looks like the best team in football too, but we could talk to them after you get some FaceTime there.
I really jinxed myself on the Next Man Up season prediction podcast with my Steelers take, my Steelers upset.
I had the Steelers
just whatever I say, just bet the house against me. So
except maybe the Cowboys, maybe that take isn't terrible.
No.
A lot of people like the Cowboys. A lot of people on our show like the Cowboys. I mean, listen, I had the Giants surprising people in the NFC. Can it still happen? I sure hope so. I mean, God, I don't know. I really don't. My tone, this will be my FaceTime for the Giants. Giants fans, number one, don't give up. We're not as terrible as we saw on Sunday night. Maybe this team needed a little adversity. Is it completely discouraging that we got shut out? Yeah. A blowout loss is one thing. A blowout shutout is detrimental to your soul. So I don't have nearly the same level of confidence that I had 3 days ago. I thought the Giants were going to go in there and compete. I thought it was going to be a close game. I thought when the weather was going on that it could result in a lot of sloppy turnovers, but I didn't think it would be so one-sided. So my tone has changed. We got to temper our expectations. Giants Cardinals, win this game and control this game from the start, and we will feel a lot better going against San Francisco. Listen, everybody's going to, toot the horns of the teams that won, but we saw the Bengals lose badly. We saw the Seahawks lose badly. We saw the Giants lose badly. And sorry, John, we saw your Bears lose badly. Are all these teams just going to completely fold? Probably not. It's week 1 in the NFL. A lot of things change. Do I know for certain that the Giants are going to be better than last year? I'll be honest. No, I don't. I really, really don't. I expect them to be, but it's more of a hope than it is a sincere belief, because God forbid something happens to Waller or they lose some of their prized new possessions early due to injuries. Could be looking at a very different season. I think the summary of the game, I think the picture of the game sums everything up. I've never seen Daniel Jones as visibly frustrated. He just buried his hand. He never shows emotion, but he completely buried his face in pouring rain. It looked like Y.A. Tittle in that famous photo where he got sacked and his head was bleeding and he has kneeling. It looked like just pure defeat. So Daniel Jones, you got your bag. We need to be harder on you now. I understand that the offensive line is probably more to blame, but when you have 4 attempts that need to be, or 4 to 6 attempts that you obviously screwed up, that can't happen. It can't happen. Maybe we could afford 1 or 2, but we need to see the Danny Dimes that we saw last year, which was ball security, athleticism in the running game, and occasionally throwing the ball downfield when we need to. So, big picture, don't be a sad sack Giants fan that gives up. Try and enjoy this week. If we get a nice W, it'll be good against the Arizona Cardinals. But our schedule is tough. Things change, though. Obviously, week 8, we talked about Giants-Jets, Aaron Rodgers, Jet Life. That's all different now. So we'll see how the season plays out week to week. And I'm just ultimately happy football is back. And I just hope I can get one thing to smile at in the next game, because I got nothing this week. It sucked.
Yeah, but around the league, what kind of takeaways do you have from this week? I mean, you mentioned some teams that lost badly, including teams like the Seahawks that made the playoffs last year. Right. We had some big teams lose. Kansas City lost to Detroit. You have the Niners looking like the best team in football, completely blowing the doors off of Pittsburgh. And, Cincinnati, that's another game that weather played a big factor in too. But, we saw a lot of top teams fall. What are your takeaways really from week one around the league? John, since Anthony had a lot of time going there, what were your big takeaways from the week as a whole?
I'm a big believer in home divisional dogs. Speaking of a couple of games, like you just mentioned, Cincinnati at Cleveland, a lot of people don't understand or don't realize that Joe Burrow, statistically and historically throughout his career, has really struggled against Cleveland. I thought it was very, very interesting that Joe Burrow didn't even throw for over 70 yards. So for as upset and frustrated as I am about Justin Fields' play, it could have been a lot worse. I thought the Steelers were going to come out and be a little bit more competitive. They looked great through preseason. Kenny Pickett really was one of the better quarterbacks in the preseason across the league. But I think that just goes to show that we can't really necessarily depend on what we see in the preseason. The preseason and the regular season are two totally different entities. In San Francisco, I really think I jinxed that Steelers pick and that upset that I had, because San Francisco clearly came out the gate just dominant on both sides of the ball. Brock Purdy never looked like he ever had a torn UCL in his throwing arm. Brandon Ayuk, oh my goodness. I mean, what a game for him. Christian McCaffrey, what a stud. San Francisco clearly looks like one of the better teams, if not the best team in the league. And the Seahawks, although competitive, I mean, the Rams, I feel like Sean McVay really knows how to coach against the Seahawks and against that division, and just trying to stay competitive even without Cooper Kupp. The Rams really showed me that, they're no pushover, and they will be competitive in almost every game this season. So I'm not worried about the Chiefs. I thought that was a really good game, but clearly they were missing the additions of Chris Jones, who, just re-signed that 1-year deal to stay with Kansas City. And obviously not having Kelsey was a huge factor in Thursday night's opening contest. So I don't know about you boys, any crazy predictions for this upcoming week? I'm scared to say mine. It's a pretty bold one. I feel like you guys should bet the house against me, because clearly I've had some pretty bad takes, but for whatever reason, for whatever reason, I just have this weird hunch that Kansas City goes into Jacksonville this upcoming week and they lose to the Jaguars on the road, and Kansas City starts the year 0-2, and all hell will break loose in Kansas City. I thought Jacksonville moved the ball pretty well against the Colts. I thought Calvin Ridley had a really nice, strong debut for Jacksonville. That's my hot take for this upcoming week. What about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, takeaways, I was with you that, the Niners, they were just all around the best, most complete team that played football on Sunday, without a doubt. The Eagles looked, I thought, great as well. Very good as well. And then one of the weirdest stat lines and games that I think we got from the weekend was the Ravens. I mean, we talked about them in the preseason show, about the preview show. Lamar did not have a good day. He did not have a great game on the ground, through the air. Zay Flowers looks like he is their number one receiver, though, so they might have finally got that for him. But it was also a bad week for Achilles. J.K. Dobbins tore his Achilles, and after he scored, he had a touchdown, but Justice, I forget his last name.
Justice Hill.
Yeah, Justice Hill. He came in, he had 2 touchdowns. He had a multi-touchdown game. They were without Mark Andrews. It was a bad week for tight ends. It was a weird week one. I think there were a lot of teams, especially teams that had expectations, that didn't live up to them by any means.
Low scoring week one.
Yes.
Very low scoring week one.
Yes.
A lot of unders.
A lot of low fantasy scores. I know, Anthony, you had the amazing quarterback matchup of Daniel Jones and Joe Burrow in your fantasy game.
Yep.
So,
Woof.
But overall, it was just like a weird week one. I mentioned the teams that I was sort of had thoughts of coming out of the week. But Pittsburgh, man, that was just, the two teams that got embarrassed.
The Steelers and the Giants, and the Steelers, the Giants, and the Bengals are the 3 teams that have to be taking a good hard look in the mirror right now, and have to be wondering what the hell just happened. But
I
here's the
think,
good news. It's week one.
and I think out of all of them, the Bengals have the best chance to bounce back because, Burrow, as John said, has been statistically not great
That's a
against
good
Cleveland.
question. Who has
I
the best
think,
chance to bounce back?
looking
Cincinnati.
at them, Cincinnati.
Go.
I think Cincinnati does have the best chance to bounce back because Joe Burrow did not have a lot of play during the preseason with the injury. He typically
How
starts the year
100%
off.
is he, though? That's
Yeah, exactly.
thing.
And also, he typically starts the year off a little slower
But
than
how is he
you
right
would
now?
like.
Is he going to get through the season? That's what I have concerns about.
I think he gets through the season, but you look at the weather was a big factor in that one as well, similar to the Giants game. Higgins was basically a non-factor. No, Higgins was a non-factor. He did not get the ball at all. No. Jamar Chase, I think, had 1 or 2 catches. Joe Mixon didn't have the best game either. So it's. I think they have the best chance to bounce back. Is Cleveland for real? Their defense played really, really well in that game on Sunday. John, you said AFC North is probably the best division in the AFC, and that's the one take I think that you definitely hit the nail on the head on from last week. But aside from Pittsburgh, there's always going to be that outlier. And then you look at the AFC West, and Russ got, Sean Payton is a crazy person. They wound up losing, and they started the game with an onside kick.
Same team, same result. Same result last year.
He talked all his smack up towards Nathaniel Hackett like that was the worst coaching job I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's the same exact thing that happened to them last year. And Jimmy Garoppolo looks like he's a dog. I mean, he looked like he potentially had a concussion and came back. But looking forward to this week as a Cincy, it's a big bounce back for them. I think that they're definitely not out of it by any means.
I'll end it with this. The NFL is chaos by design. It's gotten to a point with the salary cap restrictions, the roster restrictions, the money you have to pay first rounders, that every team is still got a dog in the fight pretty much till like at least week 13 or week 14. And that's what they want. They want everybody tuning in December thinking their team's got a shot. I made this joke last week. What is it, 30 out of 32 teams that are for real this year or think they're for real? At least the fan base believes they're for real. Something's got to give. Something's got to cave. So I'm going to go dark horse. Bengals are not making the playoffs this year. I'm going to throw it out there now. I know it's a crazy thing. I know it's a crazy thought. They very well could be fine. But it's just something about Joe Burrow getting that bag and something about the way he fell in that, training camp practice. I'm worried something's going to happen there. And mainly, I just think how many chances are they going to get? Like they were in the Super Bowl. They're in the championship game. They haven't finished the job. Those opportunities do not fall off trees. I like Joe Burrow. I think he'll eventually win a Super Bowl. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bengals had a, quote unquote down year in that very, very tough division. Steelers, I think they'll bounce back. Mike Tomlin is a winning coach. If this happens to be the first year in Mike Tomlin's career that he has a losing season, I'll be up here and eat my words. But obviously, you're right, Johnny. The preseason cannot be any indication for how ready a team is because the Giants hardly played their starters in the preseason, and a big gripe from the fan base is maybe we should have played more in preseason. They didn't look ready. They didn't have enough reps. Saquon didn't even play in the preseason. Andrew Thomas hardly played. Yeah, I'm in the middle on that one because the Steelers had a lot of reps in the preseason, went undefeated in the preseason, and went out there and just got humiliated. But you know what? First 3 weeks, there are going to be a lot of 0-2 teams that win week 3. Make it 1-2, and you go, oh, maybe they're in the picture. There's going to be a lot of 2-0 teams that think they're hotter than hell, and they're going to lose and, make it 2-1. It's just what always happens. The first month is hard to predict. I'm going to say that the Chiefs, if they have Kelsey, they win. I'll go with, because I just don't see Mahomes. How many times has he lost back-to-back games in his career? Has he? I mean, it's very rare, obviously. So I'm just saying, I would have a hard time betting against the Chiefs for the Jaguars, especially because the Jaguars struggled to beat the Indianapolis Colts, who are a very raw young team still trying to figure it out. So all in all, weird, wacky week 1. Expect another weird, wacky week 2, fellas. It's not going anywhere. It's not going to change.
I can't wait.
This is football. This is what it's about. Chaos, balls on the ground, block kicks, quarterbacks going down. This is what the NFL wants. We call it script writers. the key to the script writers is that there is no script. That's the beauty of it. And that it is the most unscripted, random, crazy thing. So we're happy football's back. But let's all temper our expectations. Let's all understand that at any moment a storm can come in. Last thing I'm going to actually, I wanted to say this earlier. If we're going to have multi-million, billion, whatever it is, dollar stadiums, okay? And we're going to have two teams playing in one stadium at the same time. So that's the income of two teams. You have the Giants and the Jets at MetLife Stadium. We can't figure something out to get a retractable dome if it happens to be a ridiculous monsoon. I know I sound kind of lame right now. I realize that. A lot of, especially, a Chicago fan, you like to be out in the cold. It's an advantage. The Packers use Lambeau Field as an advantage late in the season.
We've had several field issues as well. Many players have gone on record saying that Soldier Field is arguably one of the worst playing surfaces around the league. So I understand the MetLife debacle. And I'm confused too, because I thought I read a report that new turf was implemented.
No, they changed the turf.
They did. They got new turf this year.
I'm not complaining about
what's
the
going
turf.
on?
No. Here's my point. These people buy tickets to go sit on a Sunday night in New Jersey. Most of them are going to take hours to get. They'll be lucky if they're home by 2 a.m. and they have tickets for so long. And what happens? You get a weird band of weather just destroying the night for everybody. And I think we're at a point where there's so much money and there's so much hype surrounding this that nobody wants to see that. So how about we get some retractable domes? A lot of stadiums have it. Dallas has it. I know it's lame. I know everybody wants, cold weather in December, and that's fun to watch. I would rather see football in a purely competitive standpoint than continue to see whatever the hell that Sunday night game was, whatever the hell that Cincinnati game was. It just sucks when it's raining that hard. I like snow games. I like cold games. When it's pouring rain, I don't think anybody wants to be there. And I just think the NFL isn't. I'm sick of it. I know I sound like an old man, but that's my final take on the show. Week 2 is coming soon. We got Football Madness. It's a lot of fun right now on Down the Rabbit Hole Media. This was Next Man Up. Johnny's been doing his thing on the Bare Necessities podcast. Very awesome show. Please check out the program. You can check out the podcast on Down the Rabbit Hole Media. Chris did a whole Hard Knocks season recap of the New York Jets season, also available on Down the Rabbit Hole Media. And, of course, we have all the hosts on Next Man Up continuing to contribute content for us throughout the year. We had some great reaction videos this week. So thank you, all of you that have tuned in. This was Next Man Up on Down the Rabbit Hole Media. And as always, be well.